Aviation accidents. Though they are exceedingly rare, they do happen. And with more than 30 million global flights taking off and landing each year, we can certainly see why. While safety investigators are often able to determine the cause of most airplane crashes, there have been a handful of accidents that still remain a mystery. Join us as we look at some of the strangest passenger and military flight crashes and disappearances. For our first entry, Helios Airways, Flight 522. Dubbed one of the most horrifying incidents in aviation history, Flight 522 began its journey in Cyprus, destined for Greece on August 14, 2005. It veered slightly off course, and 19 radio requests were sent for an explanation, but there was no response. After scrambling two F-16 fighter jets, they caught up with the airliner only to see that the captain's chair was empty and the co-pilot appeared to be unconscious, with his oxygen mask dangling from the ceiling. They stated that all the passengers appeared to be frozen to their seats, and unconscious, also with their oxygen masks dangling in front of them. The fighters followed the ghost plane as it flew on autopilot until it ran out of fuel and crashed into a hillside. The official report by Greek authorities concluded that the pilots had somehow incompetently left the plane's pressurization system in manual mode after takeoff, so the plane didn't automatically repressurize when cabin pressure was lost. Further, the pilots failed to recognize the warning signs that the cabin was losing pressure and oxygen until it was too late, damning the passengers and all the crew members. For our next entry, the Tybee Island mid-air collision. During a routine training mission off the coast of Georgia in February 1958, an Air Force B-47 bomber accidentally collided with an F-86 fighter jet, whose pilot didn't see the aircraft on his radar. The crash tore the left wing off the fighter and severely damaged the bomber's fuel tanks. Though there were no fatalities, what makes this crash unique is the fact that the bomber pilot, Air Force Colonel Howard Richardson, was forced to make a frightful decision. His aircraft happened to be carrying a 7,000-pound hydrogen bomb, and Richardson was worried that the bomb would break loose from his damaged plane when he tried to land. To avoid that situation, he went with his only other option, and dumped the bomb into the waters off Tybee Island, Georgia, before landing at Hunter Air Force Base outside Savannah. The Navy searched for the lost bomb for more than 2 months, without success, and for decades, its location has remained a mystery. The Air Force says the bomb presents little hazard if left undisturbed. Next up, Egypt Air, Flight 990. On October 30, 1999, Egypt Air Flight 990 took off from Kennedy Airport in New York, bound for Cairo with 217 people aboard. A senior pilot named Ahmad Al-Habashi was in command of the Boeing 767 jetliner, and a veteran co-pilot, Gamil Al-Batouti, was assisting him. The plane climbed to 33,000 feet and flew normally for 30 minutes, before plummeting into the Atlantic Ocean, 60 miles south of Nantucket, Massachusetts, killing everyone on board. Egyptian officials believed that mechanical failure was to blame. But the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board concluded that the co-pilot had deliberately caused the crash, citing that the autopilot was off. The plane was in a wings-level dive and the co-pilot muttered calmly to himself, "I rely on God," many times. The final report said that the crash was due to the co-pilot's manipulation of the airplane controls, a claim Egypt still disputes to this day. However, one Egypt Air pilot told the FBI that Batouti had just been demoted because of accusations of sexual misconduct, and might have crashed the plane to commit suicide or to take revenge against his supervisor, who was also a passenger on the flight. Up next, Pan Am, Flight Number 7. On November 9, 1957, a Boeing 377 took off from San Francisco to Honolulu with 36 passengers and 8 crew members. This was the first leg of what was supposed to be an around-the-world flight. The Stratocruiser was considered the lap of luxury, and passengers aboard, enjoyed 5 feet of legroom, reclining sleeper seats, a cocktail lounge in the shape of a horseshoe, and 7-course dinners that included caviar and champagne. Halfway through the flight, radar contact was suddenly lost without a distress call from the plane. After a 5-day search, a U.S. Navy carrier spotted floating debris and recovered 19 bodies nearly 1,000 miles northeast of Honolulu. Most of the victims were wearing life vests, indicating that the plane had been prepared to hit the Pacific Ocean. The aircraft and the remaining 25 people aboard were never found. Although testing revealed elevated levels of carbon monoxide in several of the recovered bodies, the Civil Aeronautics Board found no evidence of foul play or sabotage, and the reason for the crash remains inconclusive. For our next lost flight. The Mantell UFO Incident. On January 7, 1948, Captain Thomas Mantell, a Kentucky Air National Guard pilot, and some other pilots took off in P-51 Mustang fighters from the airfield at Fort Knox, pursuing a rapidly moving, westbound, circular object. When the large, metallic object elevated to 22,500 feet in altitude, the other pilots called off the chase, due to the dangers of flying above 14,000 feet without oxygen. However, Mantell kept following this strange aircraft, and his plane eventually tumbled from the sky and crashed in Kentucky. The official explanation was that he lost consciousness from a lack of oxygen, causing the crash. However, questions remained about why he kept going and what he was following so intently. Air Force officials initially said Mantell had mistakenly followed the planet Venus, but the public refused to believe such a ludicrous story. Some witnesses claimed he had seen a spaceship or some other worldly craft. The Air Force now says the object was believed to be a skyhook weather balloon used to measure radiation levels that was part of a secret project at the time. For our final entry. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. No doubt the most distinguished on our list. In June 1937, celebrated aviator Amelia Earhart set out to become the first woman to fly around the world, a trip of 29,000 miles. She'd completed all but the final 7,000 miles by July 2nd, when she and her navigator Fred Noonan took off from La in Papua New Guinea, for a 2,556-mile flight to Howland Island, a small island in the Pacific. A U.S. Coast Guard cutter, the Itasca, was stationed just offshore, and 2 other ships were positioned along the flight route as markers for Earhart's plane. Nevertheless, the plane ran into overcast skies and intermittent rain showers that made celestial navigation, Noonan's favorite method, difficult. The next morning at 7:42, the Itasca picked up this radio transmission from Earhart: "We must be on you, but we cannot see you. Fuel is running low." About an hour later, Earhart radioed, "We are running north and south." That was her last transmission, and her plane never arrived. Rescuers mounted what was at the time the most massive search in aviation history, searching 250,000 square miles of ocean in a fruitless attempt to find her. Some believe the plane crashed in the ocean and the pair were killed. Others claim that they survived the crash but died of thirst on a remote island. Some even claim that they were taken alive as hostages by the Japanese who thought they were spies. To this day, Earhart and Noonan's fate remains a mystery. So, what did you think of our selections for this video? Were any of these new to you? Drop a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching.